Welcome to BiharConnect Book Talk. Today we will be talking about a bestseller book recently published. It's titled Kathmandu Chronicle, Reclaiming India-Nepal Relations. And I am fortunate to join today by authors. It has been jointly authored by Ambassador K.V. Rajan and Mr. Atul K. Thakur. And I am also joined by Rajiv Jayaram, a senior journalist. So he will also be participating in the discussion. Mr. Rajan, if I can start with you, India and Nepal
Yeah.
share very special relations. And in recent decades, basically 90s onwards, we see a lot of suspicion and that kind of happening. Several events have happened in the last 3 decades, which has created kind of suspicion in the mind of people, and at the government level also we have seen. And you have the experience, you have been involved in the bilateral relations so closely. So we would like to hear from you what has shaped this relationship in between India and Nepal in the past 3 decades, and what have you
Uh,
chronicled in the book? Yeah.
Sorry, you wanted to know what exactly was the last part of your question? I couldn't hear it clearly.
I want to understand what have you highlighted in the book, which is
Yeah.
basically Yeah. So, what is the focus of the book, sir?
Well, the basic idea was that even after, 75 years of India's independence, and despite the unique linkages that we have with Nepal and the complementarities and the great assets that both countries enjoy, the relationship has not been a stable one, and it has not lived up to its true potential. So we thought that both countries need to introspect deeply as to why this has been the case and whether there is any course correction possible so that we can start afresh with new mindsets, because otherwise it's the same old mindsets of the East India Company days or the British government days, which have guided the foreign policies, bilateral policies of both countries. And we wanted to see whether we could revisit the past, re-examine the present in terms of its challenges and opportunities, and also see if there could be a clearer upward trajectory for the future relationship. I think that was really the motivation behind writing the book, and I hope that we have succeeded to some extent at least.
So, the relationship what we see and with India's foreign policy right now, what is happening with Bangladesh, and that similar kind of suspicion we had seen with Nepal. So what is your take on that? Is it distrust and suspicion is growing between India and its neighbors?
Well, the other day, the External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, made a very significant statement when he said that there were three forces which uh, guide foreign policy or should guide foreign policy. One is the government to government policy, government to government interactions. The other is the think tank deliberations that go on. And the third should be the voices of the street. Now, in addition to that, of course, there is a superimposed aspect, which is that of the deep state, to which we can come in due course, which also affects foreign policy. But India and Nepal, instead of listening to the voices of the street, now what is the basic voice from the street at the people-to-people level between India and Nepal. It is the roti beti rishte, which this is basically a reality of India-Nepal relations, a unique reality which no other two countries in the world perhaps enjoy to the same degree. But that has been ignored in the formulation of foreign policy. And we have not repeatedly, we have been making the same mistakes over several years, not only with Nepal, but with our neighbors, I believe. We have not learned from the past. We have repeated the mistakes of the past. So, what I think we should be doing is to learn from the past and not repeat the same mistakes again and again. And unfortunately, you mentioned Bangladesh. I'm afraid I personally think that, the tendency to have a personality centric driven foreign policy rather than a people centric policy has been at the root of our problems with our neighbors. Pakistan should be kept aside, it's a separate category by itself. But in the case of many other neighbors, certainly in the case of Nepal, and now I feel in the case of Bangladesh also, because we were centered on a particular personality or a particular party, I think it led to certain forces against India, and these gathered force, and these gathered strength, and these were then supported by anti-India elements. And the same thing used to happen in Nepal again and again, because we tended to support a particular person whom we considered to be pro-India, and that led to anti-Indian feelings on the part of other parties. Instead of that, we should have tried to build a cross-party consensus and have a people-centric approach, which we tried to do. When Narasimha Rao was Prime Minister, we followed the twin pillar policy of supporting the monarchy as well as a multi-party democracy. Whereas earlier, it used to be one or the other. Usually it was supporting multi-party democracy, but with some caveats and conditionalities. And when we had some real problems, we used to support the monarchy briefly. That led to all kinds of problems. But the moment we started supporting everyone and supporting Nepal as a country and the Nepalese people, then we began to obtain a very good resonance for our policies. And we found that we could sign important agreements, have high-level visits, deal with sensitive issues, etc. And very often we came very close to settling old irritants, and so in one or two cases we even settled them. But the moment we departed from that, we ran into serious problems.
So you referred about monarch, and what led to that, and our relation during that period and now. So what has changed? Do you think our relation is weaker today than what it used to be during the monarch time?
What is my story during the, sorry?
Uh, no, what I'm asking, India-Nepal relation today, what we see, there is room for
Mhm.
suspicion and that kind of thing today, and it used to be during the
Well,
monarchy.
today I think the situation has completely changed because Nepal as a country has been completely transformed, and with the abolition of the monarchy, in one stroke, as it were, Nepal was sought to be transformed from a monarchy or a Hindu state into a secular republic, um, and that has created its own problems because secular federal republic at that. And then the China factor has become much more acute. Um, During the monarchy, towards the end, there was a lot of cooperation with all the political parties, the palace, and the intelligence agencies, and we were able to nail the problems of security that we were facing with the deep state in Pakistan. The nexus between the smuggling, terrorist linked industry and the ISI and the military, but and the misuse of the open border, which led to all kinds of problems. But after that, because Nepal has been very understandably having major problems in overcoming its transitional difficulties, although it has made some very significant achievements like the mainstreaming of the Maoists, the writing of the constitution, etc. But in terms of governance, in terms of the quality of democracy, in terms of achieving inclusive development at the speed at which people expect, unfortunately, that has not happened. So that is leading to a lot of domestic dissatisfaction in Nepal. And there is also a certain amount of discomfort now being voiced by different communities with different sections of the population in Nepal about it being described or being transformed into a secular state, because I think Nepal was very proud of its identity as the world's only Hindu kingdom, and it is genuinely a very religious minded country. And so I think you find thoughtful commentators like Harivansh Jha also voicing their apprehension that people are not very comfortable at the identity which has more or less been forced upon them of a secular nation. That is one aspect. The other, as I said, is the China factor, uh, where the Chinese have made it very clear that they have certain strategic objectives in Nepal, as indeed in the rest of our neighborhood. And, Nepal earlier used to be tempted to play the China card in order to extract all kinds of concessions from India. Then it became a kind of a balancing act between India and China because it saw some advantages for itself, or individual political players found some advantage for themselves in turning to China. And they were trying to assert a kind of strategic autonomy. Now, they don't seem to realize that that strategic autonomy is now being transformed into strategic advantage for China, which is a matter of great concern for India. And recently, a number of things have happened. The border differences between India and Nepal have come to the fore. The Nepalese have not only passed a parliamentary resolution unanimously ratifying their border claims, including claims that they had never made in the border against India. But they have now gone ahead and they are printing 100 rupee notes with the disputed map so that every Nepalese, when he sees 100 or she sees 100 rupee note, is reminded of the insinuation that India is an occupation of Nepalese territories. So, in a sense, an anti Indian sentiment is being injected into the popular consciousness for the foreseeable future. And then the Chinese are spreading their wings at an astonishing speed in Nepal. Confucius institutes have been set up all over Nepal. They are trying to increase their tourism, their trade and investment links. They are openly saying that it is unfortunate for Nepal that they have a neighbor like India. So they are now actively encouraging anti-Indian sentiment in Nepal. So that is a factor that we have to take into consideration. And it is unfortunate that on top of all this, the Nepalese have gone ahead and they've decided to ratify the BRI understandings with Nepal, with China. Although the consolation for India there is that fortunately there is a coalition government in Nepal, and the majority party, the Nepali Congress, is a member of the coalition, and they have made sure that the BRI projects are not approved en masse, but they will have to be approved project by project and negotiated project by project in terms of the financing. So it is not as if they are falling into the same kind of debt trap that the Sri Lankans had fallen or many other countries have fallen. I mean, the Nepalese are very well aware of the dangers of falling too deeply into a Chinese embrace. But in spite of that, there are elements in Nepal which find the Chinese embrace to be in their interest. And, it is for India to play its cards as effectively and as subtly as possible so that the Nepalese can protect their interests, first of all, and also India-Nepal concerns are respected.
Yeah. So Rajiv, I'm also joined by Rajiv, is a senior journalist. So Rajiv, if you can, if you have any question for sir, or then we can go to Atul.
I have this question. Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Both.
Yes,
All
please.
right. Thank you, sir, and thanks, Atul, and thanks, Gyanendra. I congratulate the authors on writing a wonderful and informative book. I read reading it. I mean, actually enjoy reading it. Now, one question I have is that you were very forthright in saying that one country that India needs a fresh start is Nepal. I repeat, I mean, you asserted in your book that one country India needs to have a fresh start is Nepal.
Nepal.
So,
Yes.
yeah, where do you go? I mean, where do you think it goes from here? I mean, Ambassador Rajan has just listed all the problems bedeviling our relations as well as the China factor. So where do you go? Where do you think both think the relations from will go from here on? What would be the trajectory?
Sir, the question is, we have written that India should start afresh in Nepal. So what's the reason behind it?
Yes.
Sir, can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you. Sorry, there's something wrong with the audio.
Now?
Yeah, speak slowly and clearly.
Yeah, the question is, we have written in the book that India should start afresh in Nepal. And Rajiv ji is asking what's the reason behind it? Why we are saying this? Why India should start afresh in Nepal?
No, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Just speak slowly and clearly, please.
So I will answer it just in a moment.
Yeah.
So basically, we wanted to as sir has said in his introductory remarks that the relationship has been very sound between two countries, in India and Nepal. But then at the same time, it has been on a roller coaster as well. Nepal being a new republic, still its political transition is not over, and as Sir has pointed out, in 90s, the entire decade was full with complex challenges for India, and there were certain sections who played a lot with the China factor and few other interventions, and that finally led to some big happenings in the country. Maoist insurgency, IC-814 hijacking, then in the last decade, royal family assassination, and finally the end of monarchy, and the country became a kind of geostrategic hotspot in South Asia. With the interventions from outside, the role of deep state, the collaborators inside. So various host of factors were the reasons to write that India should start afresh in Nepal, because it's a transformed country. It's full with aspirations, and it's no longer the same country which it used to be 25 years back. So in the changing time, knowing our own priorities in the country, we should start afresh. That was the reason of writing it.
So,
However, however,
yeah, Atul, if I can ask you, because we are, if sir is not able to connect, uh, how do you
uh,
see when we talk about starting a phrase? Because for decades, for centuries, actually, India and people from both sides, basically Bihar, where we are talking in context of BiharConnect.
Yeah.
Uh, People have generations. There are marriages. People have they are connected. So, what does it mean for starting a phrase for the people? I am asking from the people's perspective. What does it mean? Like those who,
Yeah.
yeah.
The bilateral relations between two countries have been really unique in the world, and we don't have another example like it. And the roti beti samman, the matrimonial relations, livelihood, interfaces, all are continuing. There is no disturbance at all in all this. And I admit that at times we get some hiccups, but that doesn't mean that the old goodwill of past is over now. It's everything is continuing, but at the same time we need to know the spiritual Nepal, which is new, which is transforming, already transformed. As Sir has said, that it's an open country, and very much willing to engage with rest of the world. So that's okay. Being a sovereign country, Nepal has every right to do it. But then, being a well-wisher of bilateral relations, we also have to think what all need to be taken care of. At times, what happens with the lack of empathy, we have written in detail in the book that the policymakers should show greater degree of empathy in dealing with, even dealing at official level. Second, people to people connect will should continue in the way it has been continuing for decades, for centuries between two countries. But the point is, as Nepal is a changed country, so is India, because India is a global superpower, which it was not before 30 years back. We just lost our former Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, who introduced economic reforms in the country. And oftentimes in Nepal, we keep talking about how to inspire Nepal getting on the path of economic reforms. As of now, the country is and economy is not totally formalized. So different challenges, and when we say that reorienting or repurposing the relationship, that does not mean we are saying that the old good thread in bilateral relation is over. What we are saying that with the change time, we should repurpose it for the benefits of both the countries and the people, of course, who are interdependent on each other. So the relationship should be defined by complementarity, a sense of complementarity, and with keeping empathy in dealing the official matters.
So you have been very closely interacting with the officials, with the people, and what kind of change you see, or is the trust or relations between the people to people contact? I am saying, is it evolving for better, or it is going more suspicious and diplomatic kind of relation with India
It's,
Nepal? When we were,
it's yeah, it's a mixed thing. It's a mixed thing.
One major change
yes, sir. Can you hear
is
me?
that the
Yes, sir.
anti-Indian sentiment was restricted to the Kathmandu Valley elite because it was really the British who first fed suspicion about India and mistrust about India into the minds of the Kathmandu Valley elite when they were having their special influence over Nepal. And later, because of problems that we had with the monarchy, because we had certain concerns about democracy in Nepal taking off in a way which would not respect India's concerns fully, there were suspicions in the minds of Nepalese politicians that India was not being very sincere about wanting full-fledged democracy in Nepal. And we did not address these misperceptions because very often these were misperceptions rather than reality in Nepal that India wanted to intrude into Nepal's internal affairs. We did not address those. We did not address problems that were arising in India-Nepal relations in time before they became major irritants. And now, slowly but surely, because also of a few missteps that were made, for example, when the constitution was promulgated, when India tried to make last-minute efforts to prevent the promulgation of the constitution, they thought it was interference in their internal affairs. Similarly, when the Maoists came to power with India's active support and the monarchy was disbanded, when Prachanda, the Maoist leader, tried to form a coalition involving the Madeshis, the Prime Minister of India sent a special envoy to Nepal to urge the Madeshis not to ally with the Maoists. So that gave the impression that India had not been sincere when it tried to mainstream the Maoists. And now you have the border issues, etc. So this aspect of people-to-people relations is definitely getting diluted and threatened. And unless we address these issues clearly, unless we adjust our diplomatic style so that misperceptions about India's intentions are addressed, I'm afraid the people-to-people linkages also might gradually get eroded. And, the younger generation in Nepal probably has less interest in India than the generation which is over, which has now passed on. We also have leftist ideologies which are taking center stage in Nepalese politics on the one hand, and a strengthening of the extreme right. Both forces have had a reputation of not being very friendly towards India in the past. So these are new threats in the people-to-people relations as well as in the official relations between India and Nepal. And we have to guard against these threats in the years to come.
Okay. Atul, you would like to add something?
Yes, in addition to what Sir has said, I would like to say that while we have advantage being a traditional friend of Nepal, and so other way around, but at the same time, we can't take all these advantages for granted. In the changing times, we need to set our priorities right, set our collaborators right, and knowing the exact spirit of the country, which Nepal is as a new but very successful democracy. At the same time, we must say. So we have the advantages of keeping a very sound bilateral relations, but that does not qualify us to be complacent and stay on the same path where we have been for a long time.
Rajiv, you have any additional question for sir, or you want to have any comments on it?
Could you repeat that? Sorry.
I'm asking Rajiv if he has any additional question from you, sir, or
Yeah, Rajiv sir, please.
No,
You
it's not
you are
very
not
clear.
audible, sir. Please unmute yourself. Your audio
Yeah.
is not coming through.
There is an echo, unfortunately, which is preventing me from.
Okay.
If you could
Okay,
just
guys.
repeat your
Yes,
question
please,
slowly.
please ask.
Yeah, Rajiv,
Yeah, please slowly. Yes.
you are on mute,
No,
Yeah.
Rajiv.
Sorry.
your microphone is not working, sir. Rajiv, sir, your microphone is not working.
No, my mic is on.
Okay.
The session
I
chair,
think Rajiv.
session chair, will you please continue and you ask question, please.
Yeah. So, sir, on economic relation, if I can ask you, where are we moving? Because between India and Nepal, so people-to-people contact is really important. But what about economic relation, and how do you think it is from economic cooperation? Is what is the possibility, and where are we moving? Are we moving in right direction, or there is requirement
I
for?
think that should be the highest priority now, and accelerating inclusive economic development should be in the driving seat rather than India's security concerns. Because, the security aspect will be looked after once the economy takes off and the people of Nepal are convinced that India and Nepal are working in partnership in terms of their own long term interests. I don't think between India and China, for example, that the Nepalese have any doubts as to who their real friend is. They will definitely opt for India rather than China or for any other country. So, India, despite being a very large country, is a very insecure country. And that sense of insecurity, fortunately, is now getting reduced because India is now much more confident of its own ability to protect its interests. And that is all for the good. And I now see that there is a certain pragmatism which is underlining India's responses to the usual geopolitical games that are being played with Nepal by different countries in the world. Today, we find the US is wooing Nepal, China is wooing Nepal, Pakistan, of course, has always been wooing Nepal. But India is now, much more secure uh, in terms of its own sense of confidence. And so it is concentrating on economic cooperation. And that is making very good progress, I would say, despite all these political vibrations. And if that continues, and if that can be consolidated, then hydropower in particular is going to be a game changer. Already, number of agreements have been signed, important treaties have been signed, and there's top priority being given to hydropower production in Nepal for export not only to India but to third countries like Bangladesh. And that is going to hopefully transform Nepal into South Asia's most prosperous country instead of being South Asia's poorest country. That will make a sea change in terms of Nepal India relations, in terms of the future of India Nepal relations. And similarly, on Nepal side also, I find a certain pragmatism and a certain determination not to politicize India Nepal issues. And that should be encouraged. This is where civil society can play a very important role because if civil society can contribute to the understanding between India and Nepal, so that political players also are able to respond to popular expectations of India-Nepal ties, then I think that is all to the good.
So thank you so much for joining, all of you, and thank you for so much for your time, sir. And it has been a pleasure reading this book, and this is really informative for researchers and for everybody. And this is what you have prescribed in the book is going to be shape the India-Nepal relations in the coming decades. So thank you so much, all of you, for
Thank you.
joining.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.